doesn't sound very nice, does it? It's gonna be an interesting problems to solve because it only does it at a certain RPM. I'm gonna rule out the head gasket issue. It's not gonna be head gasket, I believe, because it's running good. It's idling fine. It's only up in the revs, so I'm gonna say it's electronic problem, like a ignition coil. Got a blown hose from the LPG converter unit there. The blown hose here. I'm not sure what this hose does, but I'm sure it's not supposed to be broken like that. So you heard the popping noise. Maybe that was what it was, or that could be causing it to run badly. I'm not sure. The other thing is, I notice is the cables are old. All your ignition cables here, they're really old. I would suggest changing them first thing, and then possibly a coil. A bad coil could cause a misfire as well, but I'll go to the simplest thing first. Leads, coils, head gasket looks fine. There's no air bubbles at all in this on this head, in this engine. No air bubbles in the radiator is a good sign. It's not shaking right now, it's running perfect. So I think it's an intermittent problem to do with electronic, some electronic issues with this car. Very likely ignition cables or a spark plug, maybe even a spark plug as well. But yeah, likely it's cables, coils, spark plugs. That's where I'd be looking with this issue. Initially, when I took off the radiator cap, I noticed that there's a milky substance on the bottom of the cap. But the owner of this car did tell me that it had a head gasket done maybe a year ago or so, a year or two ago, and it worried me a little bit when I saw this. But thinking, listen to the way the engine sounds like, and there's not too much. There's nothing in there in the radiator, it's just on the cap. I think it's just residue oil that's been left in there from the previous head gasket job that they did, and they didn't flush out the radiator after they did the job, and that's kind of misleading, some people. It's very misleading when you see that. But I'm gonna ignore this problem because I know it had a head gasket done in the past, so I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm just worried about watching for bubbles in here. There's no bubbles. I've revved it up. No issues. No bubbles. It's perfect. It's running good. But the owner did tell me, and that's why I'm here, they did tell me that it was running a bit rough after he blew a hose. started running rough. But upon this testing, when I got here, I jumped in the car, started it. It started right away, no hesitation. It was perfect, and it's still running perfect now. So I'm wondering maybe it's a temporary fault. Look at that. No air bubbles. No air bubbles. It's been running 10 minutes now. It's starting to get a bit warm now, so I'm gonna shut this down. I'm gonna take it for a test drive around the street here and see what happens. I'm sort of, for this problem, with this diagnosis, I'm thinking it's gonna be the cables or the coils. It's very possible it could be a spark plug as well, misfiring. So it's misfiring most likely from these cables, spark plug or an old coil playing up. Once it gets warm, when it gets hot, sometimes electronics, when they get hot, they'll start to play up from the heat. The expansions and contractions, they don't like that. Yeah, so I'm going to take it for a test drive now and see if it misbehaves on the test drive. And yeah, let the owner know what's going on with it. I'm just doing this for free, I'm just a friend of mine. So I'm going to give it a test drive and just to make sure that it's got nothing seriously wrong with it. That's what he's worried about. Okay. So now I've been for a drive in this vehicle. It's a Holden Commodore, made in Australia, with a GM engine, V6 Chevy engine. I think it's a Buick engine actually. It's a Buick engine. 3.8 litre Buick engine, Ecotec. Now it's been misfiring, and initially when I checked it under the bonnet, when it was warming up, it was running fine. It was driving just perfectly fine. Now that it's warmed up a little bit more, now it's running. It's misfiring now. It's starting to misfire. Just like the owner said. I called the owner. The owner called me just then and told me how it's been misbehaving. And surely, yep, when it warms up, it does this. I'll just show you the rev counter. Have a look at the revs. When it's idling at low RPMs, it's fine. I'm driving it gently. I was driving it gently and it was fine. When I started speeding up and accelerating hard, once it warmed up a lot, you can hear that's perfect. It's idling perfect. I'm putting it under load. I've got the brake on and accelerating at the same time in reverse. And watch what happens when you climb the revs closer to 2000. It starts to misfire. You'll see. There we go. 1,500 it misfires. And doesn't sound very nice, does it? It's gonna be an interesting problems to solve because it only does it at a certain RPM. I'm gonna rule out the head gasket issue. It's not gonna be head gasket, I believe, because it's running good. It's idling fine. It's only up in the revs, so I'm gonna say it's electronic problem, like a ignition coil breaking up, or what happens if you're neutral. For a spark plug, I wish if I had a spare spark plug right now, I would have just changed one and see. So it revs fine if it's not under load. There it goes. When When there's no load on it, it's fine. When you give it a good sharp jab of the accelerator, it misfires initially, right there. This is gonna test me out. I've got no tools on me. I've just got my Mercedes Benz. I've got no tools in there really. Now I wish I had brought my toolbox. Okay. Very interesting problem to have. Very interesting. I'm gonna check underneath. I'm just checking under here again. Now it's warmed up. I'm just gonna pressure, check the pressure in the cooling system just by pressing the holes there. It feels nice and regular, not too much pressure in there, so I don't think, oh, it's getting hot. Woo! I don't think there's a head gasket problem here, because if it was a head gasket, you'd be a little pressure building up in there, so that feels normal. So I'm going to guess it's going to be one of these suckers right down there. Leads, coils, that's where I'm going to go. What year is this car? Okay, I'm going to pause this. Let's see if I can get it to do it here. Alright, I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna pause it and then see what I'm gonna do with this car. It's a friend's car, so I don't wanna go too far into it. I got no tools to fix it. I got no parts to fix it. I'm gonna think about it a little bit and I'll probably come back later. But I'm pretty sure it's electronic ignition problem with this one. I just don't know which one's doing it. Could be a coil, could be a spark plug. Don't know. I'm gonna park it now. I'm just gonna park it for a bit. Okay. So I'm back. It's night time now. I had to go all the way back home, pick up my work van with all my tools in it and the lights as well, because it was getting dark. I don't want to come back here tomorrow morning. I want to finish this little job for my friend. I want to finish it today, and it's the only way I can do it. So went home, picked up the van so I can get some light into this job. But if you have a look at this engine, it's got a it's a little bit packed on this side. On the other side was easier, but look just down there, you can just see it. I don't have much room, but just down there I've got a little space where I can put my ratchet spanner, my ratchet down there. I'm trying to undo it. I need 2 hands for this. Oh, it's tough. It's not coming off easy. Okay, I'm gonna need 2 hands, so I'm just gonna drop this. I'm gonna drop this off. Got no choice but to remove this air box. I've removed the connections for the air temperature sensor and the airflow meter down this side as well, and the gas converter or gas feed line down here and here, so it should just come off. it's got more stuff around it. Okay, great. So I've disconnected that, managed to pull it out of the way, and there you go. And there they are. So that will make it a lot easier to reach those side spark plugs. I've got the new ones already ready. So I've got all the spark plugs out. I'll just show them to you real quick. That's the old one there. If I can get it to focus on something. There it is. That's the old one. Look at that. That's worn out. That's not even the worst one. I'll show you a worse one. Look how round that is, that tip, and the top wire. Where the gap is huge. Now I'll show you a new one, just in comparison. Look at that new one. The gap is nice and tight. Whereas this one, the gap is huge. So I'm replacing them with NGKs as well. So I'm just going to break apart all these boxes and put them in. I'm going to use these brand new Bosch leads, fresh out of the box. All new, 6 new lit cables. I've already put in the other 3. Alright, everything's back together now. Done the best job I could do on the placing of these cables. So there you go, I've got the new cables in there. I've neatly tucked them away from anything that's gonna, damage them. So put it through all the way to the other side, and the coils are there. Alright, I'm gonna give it a start and see how it runs. Here we go. Oh, door's locked. Uh-oh, why is it doing that? I hope the battery's okay. Okay. It is dark out here. Ooh, starts. First go. That was nice. Nice idle. So far so good. Oh yeah. I'm gonna take it for a spin just to make sure. I'm gonna make sure that it's not misfiring. Once it warms up, I'm gonna test it again. Wow, it actually feels more powerful than before. I can definitely tell the difference. If this doesn't fix it, I'm gonna be very surprised. So the owner was saying that once it warms up, that's when the problem starts. And I tested it before when I was test driving it, and it was failing once it warmed up. Now it's cooled down a little bit. I'm going to make sure I get the temperature up to operating temperature again. I'm going to take it around the block a few times, make sure it gets hot, and hopefully that's a fix. Sounds good. It's actually, yeah, so it's a Buick motor. These cars are owned by General Motors, so it's a Holden. The Austrian version is a Holden.